Good morning. Thank you again for your interest in improving substance use disorder treatment for young people and your interest in this Bitters Forum. I want to remind everyone that all participant lines are muted during the meeting. We are hoping that we can use the chat box to address questions, so please, as we go along, feel free to enter your questions in the chat box on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We will be creating a question and answer document that will be posted to our website at the site where you access the RFP. We're scheduled to meet for 1 hour, and we are recording this session as well, and it will be posted. The WebEx meeting is being provided as a forum to provide you with details about the request for proposal that was issued by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services last Friday, August the 11th. So that is the Youth Treatment Implementation Cooperative Agreement Grant request for proposal. Ohio received a small strategic planning grant back in 2015. That was the fall of 2015. And for the last 2 years, we've been working on a strategic plan to improve treatment and recovery supports for transitional aged youth, those ages 16 to 25 for the planning grant, who have substance use disorders or co-occurring substance use disorders and mental health disorders. This strategic plan is nearly polished for completion and submission to SAMHSA. It is due by the end of September. As with many SAMHSA grants, we were to create or utilize an existing cross-agency structure, infrastructure to complete this planning effort and to oversee activities of that grant. At the time, Ohio had already been implementing several other SAMHSA grants, those listed here at the bottom of your screen, with similar infrastructure requirements. So we made an intentional decision to align all of this work under one structure we now call the Ohio Interagency Council for Youth, or the OICE for short. Late last summer, so a year into that process of strategic planning, the Ohio Family and Children First Cabinet Council endorsed the Ohio Interagency Council for Youth as a sub-work group of their work. So each cabinet director signed a statement of commitment attesting to this. While members of the OICE are in continuous communication with their system directors individually, this provided a direct line from mid-level administrators to cabinet policymakers with, in a collaborative environment. We will be sending our strategic plan to the deputy directors at the end of this month for recommendation and any needed enhancements that they see, and then on to the cabinet for approval in September so that we can timely submit to SAMHSA. These are the broad goals of that strategic plan that I just referenced. There are several objectives under each goal that are not listed here, and we won't go into that today. But they do have it associated measurement indicators and a logic model associated. In October 2016, last fall, SAMHSA released the funding opportunity for implementation of this strategic plan. As you may have noticed, we were still very much in the midst of planning. However, enough had taken shape that we were able to submit a proposal, and we received notice of the award for the implementation funding this past spring. We have been awarded $800,000 each year over the next 4 years, assuming we continue to achieve goals and outcomes. We did expand our focus from the planning grant into the implementation grant from 16 down to an earlier age of 12. So our age continuum for the implementation grant is 12 to 25. Based on data, we are focusing on the disparities that we know exist in rural and Appalachian counties. We are talking about a huge developmental range of young people from 12 to 25. They are crossing child and adult service systems and multiple systems. The state grant and this local opportunity are both focused on infrastructure, direct treatment, and recovery enhancements. Many of you may be familiar with the systems of care. This framework has largely been promoted through the mental health side of SAMHSA, but it is also relevant to children and youth, young adults with substance use disorders. Youth with substance use disorders are by nature multi-system involved. They are generally touching the school system, the behavioral health system, and they are oftentimes involved with child welfare or the justice systems. So I would encourage you to reference the Systems of Care Primer, which this definition comes from. You can find that online. As you can see, governance is key to creating systems of care, and that is why you will see that boards and FCFCs are leveraged for this opportunity. System management specifically has to do with the day-to-day operational pieces of this work. These are local decisions, and they may look different in all 4 of the awarded sites. For example, some agencies may, or some providers, boards, may use one provider for all the services. Others may use several. Some may already have pieces. Some boards may go together across county lines and across board areas. So those are local decisions that will have to occur. In the federal grant opportunity, we are expected to track these outcomes for youth involved. This is a big job across multiple counties and multiple providers, so you'll hear a bit more about how we intend to collect this data later in the presentation. Our strategic planning effort was informed by a lot of qualitative as well as quantitative data about youth in Ohio. For example, we surveyed youth, we had focus groups with youth, young adults, and we viewed population-based data. So here's just a few pieces that are worth mentioning today. Based on the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, we are estimating that there are 289,254 young people in need of substance use disorder treatment in Ohio. And of those, we estimate that 52,602 have co-occurring substance use disorders and mental health disorders. So it's about 18% we're estimating. In reviewing data produced in the report referenced in the last bullet of this slide by the Children's Defense Fund, we know that nearly half of Ohio's children are below 200% of poverty. So many of these youth are likely receiving Medicaid assistance or they may be eligible for it. Some additional data analysis worth mentioning is we pulled Ohio 2014 Medicaid claims data and determined that there are 59,623 youth, or there were, ages 14 to 25, that was the claims data we pulled, receiving community behavioral health system services. And of those, nearly 60% were male, and roughly a third had a primary diagnosis of major depression or ADHD conduct disorder. Only 3.7% had a substance use disorder specific assessment, yet we know 10,225 of the youth access substance use disorder services, about 17%. So it seems many youth may be getting services without maybe a proper assessment. Of the 10,225 youth that received substance use disorder services, nearly 3/4 had a primary diagnosis of substance use disorder. Remember on the previous slide, we might estimate that 127,561, so roughly 44% of the youth in treatment, of the youth needing treatment could be eligible for Medicaid. So this could indicate that we're missing a lot of youth in need. Almost 2/3 are over 18 and male of that 10,225, and the majority were being treated for cannabis use disorders, 65%. So getting down to the RFP itself, the eligible applicants, again, we are trying to create a systems of care. So ADAMHS boards, Alcohol Addiction and Mental Health Services boards, are those eligible to apply. They must work with providers to deliver the services in multiple counties. So 2 or more Appalachian rural counties must receive all the services that are a part of the scope of this project we will talk about. Per SAMHSA, these providers must meet the minimum experience and licensing requirements listed here and certification. The boards must demonstrate collaborative relationships with relevant partners, multi-system partnerships through their FCFC, Family and Children First Councils. Boards may apply for up to $85,000 per year and can submit a 1 or 2 year proposal. So that's $85,000 per year. The funding cannot flow to boards from the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services until after October 1, as that's when the federal award begins, but we are running this on a state fiscal year. Up to 5% can be used by boards for administrative purposes. We are trying to leverage existing infrastructure, as previously mentioned, your ADAMHS boards, your Family and Children First Councils, so that we can use as much funding of this funding for direct services as possible. Again, you must serve 2 or more Appalachian rural counties in your proposal. A cooperative agreement will be developed for signature by awarded boards, demonstrating the scope of work and attesting to the provider requirements. Representatives from each awardee must participate in a state-level collaborative. These are pilot sites that we're establishing, and this collaboration will be designed to help us learn from the implementation, to make mid-course corrections as we need, and to strive to take these efforts to scale at some point in the future. Youth and parents must have a voice and choice at all levels. This is paramount in systems of care work. Okay, using the IOM model, we've attempted to picture here for you the components of the continuum of services. You'll see we're focused on the white side, or the treatment and recovery side of this continuum. We hope to align and create these services through this project. So you'll see evidence-based assessment as a case identification, and then the 3 treatment modalities, motivational enhancement therapy, cognitive behavioral treatment and/or motivational interviewing, integrated co-occurring treatment, and medication-assisted treatment as standard treatment for known disorders. And in the recovery aspect of things, we really want to bring up alternative peer groups and really enhance peer support. As you know, that's becoming a Medicaid reimbursable service. And then across that spectrum, we want to use wraparound and/or care coordination for this population as they move between the treatment services, establishing other needs through planning, and leveraging existing community resources. So we'll talk about that a bit more. Going specifically into the scope of work, here you'll see how the funding is designed to support this system. We know that there are very few integrated co-occurring teams existing in Ohio, let alone in Appalachian and rural counties. So we hope to make this service more available. It is an intensive home-based treatment and can be under the new service array for Medicaid billed as an intensive home-based treatment once fidelity is achieved for those with co-occurring needs. It's not for everyone. We hope for sustainability purposes, the provider of this treatment will work towards fidelity so that it can be billed to Medicaid in the future. As we seek to think about substance use disorder treatment as a chronic disease, we need to consider ways to assist young people in their recovery and in the management of the substance use disorder. We cannot continue to think that a certain number of days of treatment equals a cure. Young people have told us that they are not comfortable in adult 12-step meetings and that they need to establish a sense of community that supports their recovery and that is specific to their developmental needs as adolescents and young people, young adults. There are alternative peer groups in other states, and we hope to establish this model here in Ohio. If you haven't seen the documentary about the Houston, Texas experience, it's called Generation Found, we would highly recommend that you view that. And we do have some DVDs of that film here in the office, so we may be able to make that available as well. In seeking to assure a continuum of services, we've already mentioned, we want to promote the use of motivational interviewing and motivational enhancement therapy, cognitive behavioral treatment as models to assist these young people in less intensive treatment needs, with less intensive treatment needs, sorry. Funding may be used to bring this to your communities, but we also intend to offer some training in these modalities for your projects. So we do expect all of these things to exist in your communities, but you know better than us what already is there and what the needs are. In addition, as the department supports all paths to recovery, we want you to begin to work with medical providers, if you have not already done so, to create access to medication-assisted treatment for adolescents and young adults. There are providers in Ohio who have had success with this, and as you saw previously in the data, about 15% of those accessing services are accessing for opioid treatment. In terms of state responsibilities and resources that we hope to be able to provide and are working to provide, we have been working with the Ohio Citizen Advocates for Addiction Recovery to establish a youth network of those with lived experience with a substance use disorder. As well, we have worked under Engage, the project, the Community Mental Health Initiative grant that we've had in the past, and under the State Youth Treatment Planning with NAMI Ohio to expand the Parent Advocacy Connection Network, Parent Peer Support, and Ohio Youth Move chapters. We will continue this development and focus on areas of the state selected under this RFP. I've already mentioned the ongoing work, policy work of the OIC, the Ohio Interagency Council for Youth, and the Ohio Family and Children First Cabinet. So that will continue. The state is contracting with Fidelity Electronic Health Record, Fidelity EHR, which was developed in collaboration with the National Wraparound Initiative to support systems of care work. It is the new system being utilized by FCFCs, Family and Children First Councils, for their service coordination children and young adults, and those involved in the next Engage grant. We need to collect federal national outcome measurements, NOMS data, and assessment data, and are intending to use the CANS as it is required for prior authorization for IHBT and Medicaid, and possibly the GAIN-Q Lite, but those decisions are yet to be finalized. The state will be looking to provide training opportunities, as you see here. Boards, providers will need to contract directly for integrated co-occurring treatment training, coaching, and supervision. And we did provide a link to Case Western's Begun Center in the RFP. The state will also be contracting for social marketing to raise awareness about the needs of young people with substance use disorders or co-occurring disorders. The data collection is somewhat dictated by us, as you can see, through the use of Fidelity, the NOMS data, and the assessment data. But there are still local decisions to be made and to be spelled out in your proposal around who's going to be focusing on that data collection, sort of in charge of it, and how you expect that to be run. Any issues you see with existing health records, I would spell out, etc. Okay. In terms of your application narratives, these are the components of the RFP. We want to have a consistent format for reviewing these proposals that you will submit. This will help us to expedite the selection process. As you can see, we're on a tight time frame. So we are asking that you submit in Times New Roman 12-point font, that you are using no more than 8 single-spaced pages. You do have a cover sheet with this information, and you describe your scope of work and your project. I want to skip back a few moments to previous slide. In terms of assuring that last bullet, we wanted to make sure that we are assuring good coordination for these young people. They've told us that in our focus groups and in our surveys that coordination among their services has been challenging. Some of them didn't even know that they had a plan or what was on that plan. So, as these young people move between levels of service and seek assistance with other things that will assist their recovery, things like supported education, employment, housing, recreation, we know that this good care coordination will be needed. SCSCs have been doing this kind of care coordination for years, and Ohio's Engage project has tried to make wraparound more available as an evidence-based care coordination model for young people with multi-system and complicated needs. Finally, as mentioned before, SAMHSA has very specific NOMS data they want collected. Okay. Letters of commitment. As I've already mentioned, collaboration is key to the success of this work as you're moving between different levels of service, providers, coordination, community supports. And so that's why we're asking for these letters of commitment. We want them to be as specific and detailed as possible about the roles and deliverables so that we can get a picture of how you plan your system to operate. It is acceptable. Someone had put a question in prior to this meeting. It is acceptable to partner with other ADAMAS boards on this project. Your budget needs to identify all project costs associated with the scope of the project. And here are some critical timelines. There will be one more week, so you have until next Friday, August the 25th, to submit additional questions. Again, we are going to be gathering questions from this meeting and trying to answer them at the end. We will also be posting them to a document on the website where you found the proposal. Proposals are due September the 8th. And again, we have a quick turnaround time for selection. We want to be able to hit the ground running as soon as possible. The federal award begins October 1. So now we'll look to see what questions you have, and give me just a couple of minutes here to gather those and try to respond. Okay, so we have a question. Can boards in non-rural communities apply if they partner with boards in rural communities? Absolutely, yes, you may do that. I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. I'll give it a couple more minutes to see if you have any additional questions. And then we will end this. Oh, here comes another question. Is the abstract included in the 8-page limit? No, it is not. It is separate from the 8-page limit. Good question. I know I kind of whizzed through the question or through the presentation. It's only 10:24, so we certainly have time if there are additional questions. Oh, I see another one. Can it be rural, non-Appalachian communities that apply? Can it be rural, non-Appalachian communities that apply? I think the answer is yes. It doesn't have to be an Appalachian county that applies. It can be another board area serving Appalachian and or rural. So you can be rural without being Appalachian. That may be the question. Let me know if that does not address the question. Okay, we have another question. Are there currently integrated co-occurring treatment providers in Ohio? Yes, there are. Hold on one second, and I can tell you what counties and where they exist. Okay, I'm not sure this information is completely up to date, but from the map provided from the Begun Center, there are 4 teams in 4 counties: Franklin, Summit, Cuyahoga, and Lorain. So really only one somewhat, I don't know, suburban rural Lorain. They do not exist in Appalachian and rural counties. Okay, I'll give it a couple more minutes. I'm showing 10:27, so I'll give it till 10:30. If we don't get any more questions, we'll call this bidders forum to a close. Oh, here's another question. Can an Adamas board use a for-profit provider? Yes, absolutely. Even though the funds are federal. Well, Sue, thank you for that question. You know what I'm going to say, I'm going to retract that answer and say, let me double check that with legal, and we will post an answer to that in our Q&A document on the website. While we wait to see if there are any last questions here in the next minute or so, I want to thank you for your time and your interest today. We are looking forward to this work. We know, as you know, there's a huge need in this state, and we value your participation. Again, continue to submit questions even after this webinar, and we will do our best to address them. Here's another question. We provide integrated co-occurring treatment services in Lorain County. Is anyone interested in partnering? So that is from Tamara, and I'm hoping I don't mess up your name. It looks like Awasku, I'm not sure, but hopefully you're all seeing this chat. Partnership's already beginning. Sue, does the agency or the individual provider need 2 years experience? That's a good question. We will have to check on that one through the FOA from SAMHSA just to make sure that's addressed appropriately. Great questions. Thank you all for participating again. Continue to send questions as you have them, and we're looking forward to this. Have a good day.